1 a.m. Strait of Hormuz. No announcement, no declaration, no ultimatum broadcast across diplomatic channels. Just darkness. Thick, impenetrable darkness over water that controls nearly a third of the world's seaborne oil. And somewhere inside that darkness, something enormous is already in motion. The satellites don't catch it at first. That's by design. The first CH-47 Chinook crosses the coastline at 40 feet above the water, so low that the rotor wash kicks white foam off the surface below. No navigation lights, no transponder signal. The crew is flying on night vision, the world reduced to green and black geometry. The horizon a thin, luminous line between sea and sky. Inside the cabin, 32 soldiers sit in full kit. Rifles, body armor, breaching charges, medical packs, and nobody speaks. There is nothing to say. The briefing was 3 hours ago. Everyone knows the objective. Everyone knows the timeline. Everyone knows what happens if the timeline slips. Behind that first helicopter, there are more, many more. But they're not flying in formation. That's the point. Formation flying is detectable. Formation flying creates a radar signature, a thermal bloom, a pattern that an experienced operator can recognize and report. Instead, the aircraft are staggered, different altitudes, different intervals, different approach vectors, so that any single radar sweep catches nothing but noise. The full picture is invisible. The full picture is the weapon. 1:17 a.m. The intelligence that made this night possible was 18 months in the making. Not satellite imagery alone, though there was plenty of that. Human assets, signal intercepts, pattern analysis on shipping movements, fuel rotations, analysts who spent 600 days mapping a single island's defensive architecture down to the placement of individual sandbag positions. The target is a rocky formation in the narrowest choke point of the strait, strategically positioned so that whoever holds it can observe, threaten, or interdict virtually every vessel that passes through. For years, that position has been held by forces that answer to Tehran. Tonight, that changes. The operation was rehearsed 11 times, different scenarios, different contingencies, different failure points stress-tested until the planners were confident they had accounted for every variable they can imagine. The ones they couldn't imagine, those are the ones that keep commanders awake. But there is no more time for imagining. The helicopters are already in the air. The decision was made at the highest levels and communicated through a chain of command so tight that fewer than 40 people on Earth knew the full scope of what was about to happen. 4,000 soldiers, one night, one island. 1:44 a.m. The first wave doesn't land, it orbits. 3 kilometers offshore, the lead Chinooks hold their position while the Apache gunships push forward. The AH-64s come in fast and low, faster than anything that size has a right to move, and their targeting systems are already illuminating the island's key defensive positions. The pilots can see heat signatures through the darkness. 2 guards at the northern radar installation moving in a slow patrol loop. A vehicle near the communications tower, engine running, exhaust glowing white in infrared. A cluster of bodies in what the briefing identified as the primary barracks, most of them still, most of them asleep. The Apaches don't fire yet. They're watching, they're confirming. The ROE, rules of engagement, require positive identification before the first trigger is pulled, and the pilots are methodical, disciplined, running through their confirmation checklist with the quiet precision of men who have done this before and understand what it costs when it goes wrong. At 1:51, the confirmation comes through the radio. One word, a code. The Apaches stop watching. The first Hellfire missile crosses the distance to the radar installation in less than 4 seconds. The explosion is visible from the orbiting Chinooks, a bright white flash, then orange, then a column of smoke arising against the stars. Before that smoke has time to spread, the second missile is already in the air, targeting the backup generator that powers the communications array. The third targets the vehicle near the tower, which was not just a vehicle, it was a mobile radar unit, a crucial component of the early warning network that should have, under any normal circumstances, detected the approaching helicopters 20 minutes ago. It didn't because someone spent 18 months figuring out exactly how to approach from an angle and altitude that fell in the gap between its detection arcs. The gap was 340 meters wide. The pilots flew straight down the middle of it. 2:03 a.m. The A-10 Thunderbolt IIs arrive from the northwest, flying in pairs. Their turbofan engines produce a sound that anyone who has ever heard it in a combat context never forgets. A low, grinding moan that seems to come from everywhere at once. The A-10 is not a subtle aircraft. It was not designed for subtlety. It was designed to absorb punishment and deliver destruction, and it does both with a kind of brutal efficiency that borders on the philosophical. When an A-10 commits to a target, the target stops being a problem. There are 3 hardened defensive positions on the island's southern ridge that the Apaches couldn't safely engage without risk of collateral overlap with the planned landing zones. That's the A-10's problem to solve. It solves it in 6 minutes. The GAU-8 rotary cannon. The reason the aircraft exists, the reason everything else on the airframe is built around it.
fires at 3,900 rounds per minute, and the sound it makes is not a sound so much as a physical event, a tearing in the air, a geological disturbance. The southern ridge positions fire back for approximately 40 seconds. Then they stop firing. By 2:09, the landing zones are clear. 2:11. The Chinooks don't land all at once. That's the third thing that makes this operation different from the textbook version. A mass landing creates a mass target. A mass landing gives a defender a single moment to respond with everything they have: mortars, anti-armor, concentrated small arms fire, and potentially inflict catastrophic losses before the assault force can disperse. Instead, the landing is sequenced. First chalk lands, secures the perimeter of the zone, signals clear. Second chalk lands 30 seconds later while the first is already moving towards its objective. Third chalk lands as the second reaches contact distance with the communications center. By the time the last helicopter touches down, the early objectives are already being cleared room by room. The soldiers move in fire teams, 3 to 4 per group, and they do not move in straight lines. They move in arcs, using terrain, using the burning wreckage of the radar installation as cover, using the darkness and the confusion that the Apache strike deliberately created. The defenders who survived the initial strike are not stupid.
Some of them are veteran operators who have held this island for years, but they are operating in an information blackout. Their radar is gone. Their primary communications link is gone. Their backup generator is gone. They cannot call for reinforcement. They cannot transmit a situation report. They cannot even reliably locate all the threats because the assault force is coming from multiple directions simultaneously, hitting multiple objectives at once. And the human brain, even a trained one, struggles to process that kind of multi-vector chaos, without information, without communication, without a clear picture of what it's actually facing. 2:29. The communication center falls first. It falls because it was always the priority, not for what it is, but for what it prevents. A functioning communication center means Tehran knows. Tehran knowing means Tehran can respond. Naval assets, air assets, political escalation, any number of options that become available the moment someone in a command room understands what is actually happening. Destroying it wasn't enough. The Hellfire took out the primary array, but there were backup systems, encrypted satellite terminals, frequency-hopping radios that could potentially push a signal out even in the middle of an active strike. So the assault team assigned to the communication center doesn't just fight through it, they strip it. Every terminal, every transmitter, every device that might carry a signal out of that island is either captured or destroyed in place. The room goes dark and silent, and the island becomes, for all practical purposes, a black box. Outside the communication center, the fight for the high ground is reaching its critical phase. The elevated positions on the island's central ridge, the ones the briefing identified as the control nodes for the remaining defensive network, are defended by a small, determined force that has consolidated on the high ground and is laying down disciplined fire into the approaches. 3 American soldiers take hits in the next 7 minutes. 2 are walking wounded, 1 is not. The team medic works under fire in a drainage ditch while his teammates suppress the ridge, and the casualty report goes up the chain at 2:34. A grim data point that will reach the operational commander in real time, because the one thing this mission has that the defenders do not is a functioning communications network running on encrypted frequencies the enemy cannot monitor. The ridge falls at 2:41. Not because the defenders give up, they don't, but because a 2-element flanking maneuver executed through terrain that the pre-mission reconnaissance had identified as traversable puts assault teams on 3 sides simultaneously, and there is no defensive doctrine that makes a 3-sided engagement survivable with the numbers available. Across the strait, in Iranian naval facilities, the first fragmented reports are beginning to arrive. Fragmented is the operative word. A patrol boat that passed within 12 kilometers of the island at 1:30 reported nothing unusual, because at 1:30 there was nothing on the surface to see. A coastal observation post that should have received a routine check-in from the island garrison at 2 o'clock got silence, which could mean a communications malfunction, which happens, which is not automatically a crisis. A signals intelligence unit picked up what might have been encrypted transmissions in the vicinity of the strait at around 02:15, but the source was moving, the signal was brief, and the analysts could not confirm a pattern. The problem is not a shortage of data. The problem is that the data doesn't cohere into a picture. Each individual piece of information is ambiguous on its own. The missing check-in could be equipment failure. The encrypted transmissions could be commercial shipping traffic. The brief thermal signatures that one satellite pass caught at 1:45 could be anything. Fishing vessels running at night are not unusual in these waters. It takes a human analyst looking at all the pieces simultaneously to understand
that what they are seeing is not a collection of random anomalies. It is a single event unfolding in coordinated layers, designed from the ground up to look like nothing until it's too late to matter. That realization arrives in Tehran at 0:13 a.m. By then, the island has been under American control for 11 minutes. 03:01 a.m., the flag goes up. Not literally, this isn't theater, but the operational command net crackles with the confirmation that every commander on every helicopter, every soldier at every objective, every analyst in every operations center has been waiting to hear. The island is secure. Key positions are held. The defensive network is neutralized. Casualties are being medevaced. The force is consolidating. From the island's highest point, a rocky outcrop at the northern tip that offers a 340-degree view of the strait, an observation team is already establishing its watch position. Optical systems, thermal imaging, signals collection equipment, all of it coming online in the first gray light of a dawn that is still more than 2 hours away. From this position, every vessel transiting the strait can be tracked. Every naval movement in the surrounding waters can be monitored. Every aircraft flying within range can be identified. The island is not just a piece of terrain, it is a sensor platform, a communications relay, a fire control position, and a statement, all wrapped together in 12 square kilometers of rock. Whoever holds this island holds the information that defines the strait, and the information that defines the strait defines everything that flows through it. 4:47 a.m. The sun is not yet up. The strait is quiet, or appears to be. Commercial tankers that were in transit at 1:30 have continued their passage unawares. A container ship registered in Singapore is currently 19 kilometers to the east, its crew asleep in shifts, its automatic navigation system steering it through the darkness, with no knowledge of what just changed in the waters around it. 4,000 soldiers, one night. The operation was not announced, because operations like this are never announced until the moment for announcement has passed, until the facts on the ground are established, until the position is held, until the question of whether it could be done has been replaced by the reality that it was done. That is the nature of this kind of action. It does not ask permission, it does not issue warnings. It moves at the speed of darkness and lands in the space between one reality and the next. In the coming hours, there will be statements, there will be diplomatic activity, crisis calls, emergency sessions in capitals across the region and beyond. There will be questions about intent, about legality, about what comes next. All of that is real, and all of that matters, but it will happen in the context of a new geography, a geography in which a small island at the narrowest point of the world's most critical maritime choke point is no longer held by the same hands that held it yesterday. The rules of this region were written over decades in blood and oil and political calculation. They were enforced through the implicit threat of what could happen if they were violated. Last night, 4,000 soldiers rewrote one of them. Whether anyone in Tehran, in Washington, in the tankers still moving through that cold, dark water fully understands what that means yet is another question entirely. The island is held, the strait watches, and the long silence before the world responds is already beginning to feel very loud.